in undergraduate, and then some in master's level, and I think even some in the PhD level as well. I think it should be applicable to everyone. Research should always start, well, at least this is based on my experience, should always start from a research gap or problem. So you need to find the problem that you want to solve through your research. That should be the starting point. And based on the research gap and problem, then you can define your research aim and objectives, right? How you want to solve the research gap. Well, solve the problem or fill in the research gap. And then from there, you conduct a literature review. Because now you know, okay, I want to solve the problem using this approach, then you need to conduct a literature review. So you know what has been done in the past, right? Because your research must be built upon past research. And based on your literature review, because now you are looking at past research, usually you will need to go back to refine your research gap and problem. Why? Because the problem should be unique, right? It must not be researched before. So therefore, that's the importance of conducting a literature review so you know what has been done, because you can't simply repeat what has been done previously. After you, in a sense, have a clear understanding what has been done in the past, and then, in a sense, you finalize your aim and objectives, now you can continue with developing a model or even a hypothesis. So what you want to test in your research, that's basically the meaning of the model and hypothesis. And from there, you can develop your research design. The meaning of research design, researchers, they have different ways of defining what a research design is. But for me, research design is the way you collect your data, the way you analyze them, and then obviously how you present your analysis results in the form of presenting the findings and discussing the results so people can understand the implications of the findings. So this is the general research process. I think I want to make it a bit two-way discussion, if that's okay. Any question, just ask me anytime. Is this clear for now? Okay, and online, I hope. I'm not sure how many people online. But anyway, yes, next, please. So research methodology, again, probably you know, in a sense, it can be classified into three types of methodology. We have quantitative. So quantitative methodology usually has two research designs. The first one is survey. So you ask people their opinions. You can use either questionnaire or you can interview people. So that's usually the meaning of survey. And the second one, experiments. So in an experiment, you compare the experience of two groups of people. The first one usually is the control group, and the second one is the experimental group, right? The controlled group, you don't give any intervention, maybe like a medicine, for example. But then the second group, you give the people there a particular intervention. Maybe you give the medicine, and then you want to compare the results, right? That's the meaning of experiment, comparing the experience of the controlled group with the experimental group to see whether particular interventions are effective or not. Make sense? That's quantitative methodology. Qualitative, usually we have those 6 research designs within the qualitative methodology. The first one, ethnography. So that's, in most cases, people use ethnography to understand the culture within a certain environment. So usually the researcher will immerse themselves within the culture, let's say in the construction industry on site. Then the researcher will go on site and then mingle with the workers. Even in some cases, the researchers work with them as well. So that's the meaning of ethnography. So really immersing themselves within the environment being investigated. That is ethnography. The second one, grounded theory. Grounded theory, in short, you need to collect the data first, and then you develop new theories based on the data that you collected. So that's the meaning of grounded theory. So therefore, it is called grounded theory because it is based on the ground data. Okay. And case study. So case study, in a sense, in a simple way, is to collect data from very few cases, maybe one or two cases, but then you can use different research methods to collect data from that particular case. An example, you can collect data only from one company, for example, or one construction project, but then you can collect a lot of data to get deeper understanding concerning the condition in that company or in that project. So you can use survey, you can use questionnaire, you can use interview, you can use observation, but then you only collect data from one or maybe two cases. That's the meaning of case study. Phenomenology, you want to understand why a certain phenomenon happens. Let's say you want to measure safety climate. Then you want to know what factors affect safety climate in construction projects in depot, for example. So you want to understand this kind of phenomenon. So therefore, it is called phenomenology. That makes sense? So you want to understand how certain situation happens. Content analysis, usually that one is, well, not always, but in many cases, is about secondary data analysis. So you have newspaper, you have past research, you have whatever data available for you, and then you analyze the content to identify particular themes that you can obviously expand further, and then you can explain what are the meanings of those themes to practice or to further development of theories. So that is the meaning of content analysis. So you have existing data, but then you want to analyze the content in depth to find specific meanings that you can apply in practice or for you to develop further theories. And the last one, narrative, usually that is based on the experience of a person or an individual, right? You want to know the experience of maybe a famous person, then you can ask them to develop their narrative, maybe using their diaries, for example, or you can interview them, how they grew up, and then slowly you develop a narrative concerning that particular person. So that's the meaning of narrative. So those are research designs under qualitative methodology. And obviously we have mixed methods, which is the combination of both quantitative and qualitative methodology. Next, please. Now we understand methodology. So under methodology, we have research methods. In short, the meaning of research methods is basically how you collect your data. These are some basic research methods available out there. These are the common research methods. Questionnaire, I think you know what a questionnaire is. And then the second one is interview. So you interview a person one-on-one, usually. And then we have observation. So you observe people, how they work, how they act in a certain environment. And we have systematic review of documents. So that is closely linked with content analysis, right? You have existing documents, maybe a lot of journal papers, and then you want to review them systematically to find themes and sub-themes. And we have focus groups, which is similar to interview, but it's in a group setting, right? We have, can be 5, 6, or even 10 people, and then we want to know, or we want to gain the group opinions concerning certain phenomenon. And the last one, experiment, like what I mentioned earlier, comparing the experience of a controlled group and also the experimental group. So those are the typical, the common research methods available out there, how to collect data. I think, again, you should know this one already. Make sense? Clear? Okay. Next, please. So now I just want to give some examples of what I did with my students, including undergraduate students and also PhD students. So at least just to inspire you what you can do in research, obviously in the area of occupational health and safety. The first one, this one, what the students actually wrote starting from the introduction until the conclusion. And I try to use occupational health and safety research as much as I can. So the first one, in the introduction, the level of noise exposure experienced by construction workers is higher than the noise among other workers. So that is basically the problem, right? Because when they work, the construction workers are exposed to a high level of noise, which is a health and safety hazards. Noise disturbance negatively affects both the physical and psychological health of workers. So that is the finding from past research. So in the introduction, you always need to briefly summarize what has been done in past research in relation to your research, right? Because you want to know what has been done previously so you can develop your research further. So therefore, this research aims to investigate the influence of negative emotions on the relationship between noise disturbance and unsafe behavior. So that's the aim of the research. There are three variables in a sense: negative emotions, noise disturbance, and unsafe behavior. So what is the gap? Well, first, no such research has been done in Indonesia before. And why is it important? Because it's about cultural relativity and institutional context. So usually we can explain in such a way. We can say, okay, maybe there's a research in the US, but US is a developed country. It has a particular ways of doing thing. It has a particular culture. So we can't just simply copy and paste the finding from the US to Indonesia. So therefore we justify by saying, because of cultural relativity, I think it's important as well to confirm and to actually find the results in Indonesia and see whether it is the same or not. And the second one, negative emotions as a mediator between noise disturbance and unsafe behavior has not been investigated before. So those are the gaps that we use to justify the research. So this one is done by an undergraduate student. Next, please. So what they did in the literature review, they wrote what has been done in the past concerning the impact of noise disturbance on unsafe behavior, because there are a lot of studies in the past concerning these two, right? The relationship between noise disturbance and unsafe behavior. And the second part of the literature review focuses on negative emotions. So what negative emotions are, what are the stresses which can cause negative emotions, and what are the impacts of negative emotions on performance. After conducting or writing the literature review, then they develop this model. So first we have the noise disturbance and then negative emotions. So noise disturbance can cause negative emotions, and then negative emotions can cause unsafe behavior. And they also argue there is a relationship between noise disturbance and unsafe behavior. So therefore, you can see the four hypotheses, right? The first one, noise disturbance can cause unsafe behavior. The second one, noise disturbance can increase negative emotions, and then negative emotions can increase unsafe behavior. And then the last one is basically negative emotions mediate the relationship between noise disturbance and unsafe behavior. Those are the four hypotheses. Next one, please. We used a questionnaire in this research. So we collected data only from one project. So in a sense, it can be classified as a case study as well, although the research method is a questionnaire. Apartment project in Surabaya, and we collected data from 50 structural workers and 50 finishing workers. So in one project, the top part was still under the structural work, while the bottom part was under the finishing work. So that's the normal practice in a construction project in a high-rise building. The variables being assessed in the questionnaire, well, obviously, like what we see from the literature review, we have unsafe behavior. There is one example of items used to assess unsafe behavior. The noise makes me misinterpret instructions, which leads to unsafe behavior. And the second variable, negative emotions. I often feel angry without any obvious reason. So there is only one item, okay? There are many items. And the last one, we assess noise disturbance itself. The noise makes me unable to think rationally, and so on. And we also assess the noise levels using noise sensors, basically on site. So we assess the noise level for the structural work and also for the finishing work. Clearly, we can see structural workers were exposed to higher noise level. So we just want to establish the fact first. Make sense? All good? Okay. Next, please. Now, the findings probably is a bit too small, but that's okay. The first one, so remember the three variables. I just simply presented the three variables here. The noise disturbance, structural workers, finishing workers, negative emotions, likewise, and unsafe behavior. Very clearly, we can see for all items, well, not for all, you can see the significant differences as well, but the results are consistent. Basically, structural workers, they experienced more noise disturbance. They also experienced more negative emotions, and as a result, somehow, they also behave more unsafely, the structural workers. Next, please. We also did, you know, right? This one is the SEM, structural equation modeling. So just to test the relationship between all the three variables. And basically, in short, you can read in the paper, but basically all the relationships are significant. So noise disturbance can increase unsafe behavior. Noise disturbance can cause negative emotions. Negative emotions can increase unsafe behavior. And negative emotions also mediate the relationship between noise disturbance and unsafe behavior. So we used structural equation modeling for this purpose. Next, please. And the conclusions, quite straightforward. Remember, in the conclusion, you need to link your aim with your findings. That's the most important aspect in conclusion. And you also need to explain the implications of the findings, the implications of the research on practice and also on the theory development. So that's what you need to include in your conclusions. So in this case, we argue because in that project, all the workers actually wore PPE, the earplugs, but somehow the experience of structural workers and finishing workers are different. So it means we can't really depend on the use of PPE. So therefore, Wearing PPE may not be adequate to control noise disturbance. Whenever possible, we should use the higher risk control mechanism. Remember, we have elimination, substitution, engineering control, administrative control, and then PPE is the last one, right? So therefore, basically, we are saying we can't just simply depend on the use of PPE. We need to use higher risk management control. The second one, based on that one, we need to have holistic noise management. So first, we need to identify the possible sources of noise. We need to assess or predict their levels. So then we can recommend some ways to control the noise level. And then afterwards, we have the noise control mechanism as well. So when the project actually starts, we need to keep monitoring the noise level to ensure that our noise control mechanism is adequate. So that's what we say in the conclusion. And the last one, we also confirm that noise disturbance increases workers' unsafe behavior and negative emotions, which is one of the objectives, right? I mentioned earlier. So that's the first research, how we use case study and how we use a questionnaire to collect the data. Make sense? Okay, next please. Okay, interview. Unfortunately, I don't have any example of occupational health and safety and how I use interview in this kind of project. So I need to use other types of project. So in this case, the main premise of the research is to overcome challenges of early contractor involvement in local government projects. So that is the problem that we want to solve. I'll explain to you later what is the meaning of early contractor involvement. But basically, this is a way to deliver a project. And this method has been used in other contexts in Australia, but it has not been used much in the local government projects. So local government projects, what is a good example in Indonesia? Because in Australia, we have 3 levels of government: federal, and then state, and then local government. In Indonesia, I think we have national, province, and city. I'm not sure. But anyway, similar like that. But this one, the context is local government project. So almost like a city, although the city in Australia is way smaller than the city in Indonesia. Anyway, yes. So the research gap, no existing literature can be found on the implementation of early contractor involvement in the local government context in Australia. So therefore, we want to explore a bit further why this way of delivering a project has not been used much in this context. And the aim to investigate the suitability of ECI within the constraints of the Local Government Act by identifying the challenges and outcomes of its implementation. So in Australia, even at the local government level, they have their own policies and procedures. So therefore, how this ECI can be implemented within the Local Government Act. Next, please. In the literature review, we explain the meaning of ECI. So this is the process of how ECI is usually used in a construction project. In the preliminary design stage, the client, with the support from the designers like the architects and the engineers, identify project needs and objectives, and then they together develop the preliminary design. Before the design is completed, then the client will appoint a contractor using an expression of interest process. And the contractor is selected based on the non-cost criteria. So basically based on the quality, qualification, and the experience of the contractor. And then the contractor will develop the design together with the designers, with the architects and the engineers. This is different from the traditional approach, right? In the traditional approach, usually we have the design, the client and the designers will design the project until it is completed. And then afterwards, there will be a tender stage to select the contractor, right? And then the client will select the contractor, usually based on the price submitted. And then the contractor will come at the construction stage to build the project based on the design. That's the common way of delivering a project in construction. But this one is different. So in the design stage, the client already approached the contractor. So the main purpose is that the contractor can provide advice to ensure that the design is good in terms of constructability. Because sometimes the designers can make wonderful buildings looking beautiful, but it's impossible to be built, or it is very expensive to be built. Or maybe, yes, it's beautiful, but then at the end, the maintenance is really hard. So therefore, the good things about ECI is that we can ask the contractor because they have the experience, right, to build a project. They can ensure that the design can be constructed easily within the budget and also later can be maintained easily as well. So that is the main purpose of using this approach. Okay, after appointing contractor and then the contractor and the designers and the client, they develop the design. The next stage is still the tendering stage. The contractor submits a price for design and construction. So this contractor, which is appointed earlier, is invited to submit a tender as well. Okay, you have participated in the tender, in the design process. Now, can you also submit your tender price if you want to complete the design? But this contractor is not the only one invited. The client will also invite other external contractors. And then still, their prices, their qualifications will be compared as well. And then the client will have a choice whether to remain with this contractor or whether the client can choose another contractor to continue with the construction stage. So that's the meaning of ECI. Make sense? Okay. So that's the content of the literature review besides explaining the process of ECI because this is not really commonly implemented. So therefore we need to explain how it is applied in practice. We also explain about the benefits and challenges of using ECI in the literature review. Okay. So this is also, I did it with my undergraduate student. Next, please. For this research, very simple. We chose to use interviews. Why? Because very few local governments have implemented ECI, so it doesn't make sense for us to use a questionnaire because the number of people participating will be very small anyway, and we want to get more deeper insight from the experience of people concerning ECI. So therefore, we felt it's better to use interviews for this purpose. Gaining detailed knowledge of the participants' experience with ECI, like what I mentioned earlier, we want to get a deeper insight. And these are examples of the questions. There are some more, but these are just the main questions, I suppose. What were the motives for selecting the ECI model? So why local government people would like to use ECI? What are the reasons? And the second one, what were the benefits of the ECI model? What were the challenges? And then what were the lessons learned from implementing ECI in public procurement? I think, as you can see, the questions are very simple, right? We just want to know how it has been implemented, why, and what is the result. Next, please. Those are the participants. So we only have 8 participants in the interview process. Again, see, very simple. And you can see the position of the participants, the organization. So we interviewed the local government people and also the contractor, and those people are experienced people in the construction industry. And for you to know how to justify the number, that is the best way to justify the number of data for the number of qualitative data. Usually you can say the appropriate number of participants depends on data saturation. So basically it means if you keep collecting data, if you keep interviewing people, you will not find anything new. So that's the meaning of data saturation. So that is the best way to justify the use of qualitative data or qualitative methodology, to be more exact. Make sense? Okay, next, please. We analyzed the interview transcripts using thematic analysis. I think you should know what a thematic analysis is. Basically, the main purpose is to identify themes and sub-themes from the interview transcript. There is a paper which is very good explaining about how a thematic analysis should be conducted. I think it's by Ron and Clark. If you want to know more, just send me an email. I can share the paper with you. But that paper is the to-go paper if you want to know more about the process of conducting thematic analysis. So we identified 3 themes from the interview transcripts. Again, very simple. The first one, the motives, why. The second one, the challenges. And the third one, the outcomes of using ECI. The motives. So why local government people would like to use ECI? They have certain expectations, right? The first one, positive relationships between the client and the contractor, because in traditional project delivery method, usually the client and the contractor have adversarial relationship, right? Because they have different agendas. The client wants the price to be as low as possible. The contractor wants the price to be as high as possible. So therefore, a lot of conflicts in traditional project delivery method. But in this case, they hope ECI can develop positive relationship between the client and the contractor because they start the work as early as possible, right? The client can get feedback from the contractor before construction starts. And the second point, like what I mentioned earlier, the client would like to capture contractors' expertise, making sure the design is good in terms of its constructability. Now, the challenges. The property is basically about conflict of interest. So how, because now using ECI, the client and the contractor are basically collaborating with one another, right? To make sure that the project is delivered successfully. In a sense that there is a conflict of interest between the client and the contractor if something value for money for the public. Changing attitudes is a bit hard as well because, again, in the past, they always have conflict with one another, the lowest price and the highest price, but now they need to collaborate with one another. So therefore, changing attitudes is a problem. Time consuming upfront. When we use this kind of approach, because we need to recruit the contractor in the design stage, automatically the time for the design stage becomes longer as well, because then there is a collaboration as well between the designers and the contractors. Because of the advice from the contractor, the design may need to be changed, so therefore the time is longer. But usually the time in construction can be shortened when we use ECI. Principal project requirements, basically there is just linking the requirements of the client with the feedback from the contractor, making sure, again, there is no conflict of interest, and making sure that the feedback of the contractor can still have the best benefits for the public, because there is, again, this is a public project. Organizing workshops is challenging as well. The workshop are attended by the client, the designers, and the contractors. They are discussing about the design, making sure that the design can be easily constructed and so on. So there must be a good facilitator to capture all the feedback and input from the different parties participated in the workshops. And also another question is when to involve the contractor. How far in the design stage should the contractor be invited? As early as possible or after the design is near to completion. It will affect the cost of the project as well. The longer the contractor is employed, obviously that will increase the cost. The outcomes, actually they found, by using ECI, we have better collaboration with the contractor. The project also has better constructability because we can get the insight from the contractor. It has better innovations as well because we get more feedback from more people. So then we can implement new things in the project. And it generates cost certainty because, again, we get the insights from the contractor. So therefore, the cost of the project can be estimated more accurately because we have ensured that the design can be easily constructed. Better risk management because better constructability, and it generates better value for money as well for the public users. So that's what we found from the thematic analysis and how we identified the themes and the sub-themes. Next, please. And the conclusions, again, very simple. We develop recommendations for local governments to implement ECI successfully so they can enjoy the benefits of ECI. And we recommend to collect data from other locations in Australia to see whether they experience the same thing or not. Because in Australia, every state has its own policies and regulations, which complicate everything. So therefore, at the moment, we collect the data only from Sydney, but how about if we try in other states, Melbourne, Brisbane, and so on? And collecting perspectives from not so successful ECI so we can understand better the challenges and how to address them. Because it seems like when we collected data in Sydney, all of them have experienced successful ECI, but how about the non-so successful ECI? Maybe we can learn more from them as well. So that's what we say in the conclusion. Good. That's the second research. Next, please. Okay, now an example using systematic literature review. So this is basically using secondary data, right? We don't collect primary data, but we just simply use the data available, and then we conduct a systematic literature review to present past research results in a systematic way to generate new understanding. Okay, the problem or the gap, we argue, no study has focused on the influence of the benefit of prefabrication on construction workers' mental health. So there are past studies concerning the benefits of prefabrication on cost, on time saving, on quality, but no research which focuses on prefabrication and mental health. Do you know the meaning of prefabrication? No? Okay. Prefabrication in the construction industry means instead of doing the work on site, the workers do the work in a factory. So they build big floor slabs or big wall panels, or can be the entire room, usually bathroom or kitchen. So they build in a factory, and then they transport the big segments on site for installation. So that's the meaning of prefabrication. Make sense? It's good for the workers in terms of health and safety because they do the work in a factory, right? Not on site, which is getting exposed by the sun, by the rain, by the wind, by the air pollution, and so on. But when we do the work in a factory, it is in a protected environment. And it is easier as well to control the health and safety when we work in such an environment. Make sense? That's the meaning of prefab. Yes. And to identify and class, so those are the objectives after we formulated the gap. The first one, to identify and classify mental health stresses in accordance with their sources. So we want to identify the stresses in the construction industry because we want to find the link, right, between prefab and mental health. So therefore, we identify the stresses. And the second one, assess the relevance of prefabricated construction techniques to improve the mental health of construction workers. So that's the second objective. Straightforward. Next, please. So in this case, we conducted, remember, a systematic literature review. I'm sorry, it's way too small, but all the papers are available online. Again, if you want to know the papers, send me an email. I'll send them to you. We did 2 systematic literature reviews. The first one is finding the stresses of mental health in construction. And the second one is about the benefits of prefabrication for health and safety. So those 2 are the systematic literature review. So we use the Prisma techniques. I think you have heard before. I can't even remember what is the what does Prisma stand for. But anyway, there is the common method of conducting a systematic literature review. I'll just explain to you briefly. We use the records from Scopus Web of Science PubMed. So in total, we found more than 2,000 publications initially. So obviously in Prisma method, probably you know we use keywords, right? The keywords can be for this one can be construction, mental health, depression, mental illness, anxiety, whatever. So we use a lot of keywords to identify relevant publications. Okay, so afterwards we screen the 2,600 publications, making sure all of them are relevant. Usually we start from the title and the abstract. So then we exclude 600, from the first one. First we found 2,600, but then we remove almost 2,000 duplicate because we use different platforms, right? Scopus, Web of Science, sometimes they generate the same publication. So therefore we remove the duplicates first. And then the second one, we screen the title and the abstract and we remove the irrelevant ones. So we excluded 600 publications. Now we only have 700 publications. And then afterwards, we screen further, from this one 700, and then we exclude 600 based on the abstract and the title. And then afterwards, we want to make sure that we can retrieve the full text for all the 166 papers. And based on that one, actually, we can retrieve all the papers. So therefore, 0 is excluded. And then we assess them further for eligibility. So we have selection criteria. We excluded conference papers. We excluded review articles. And then we read the whole papers as well, making sure the scope is relevant. So at the end, for the mental health stresses in construction, we found 51 publications to be used in the systematic literature review. And we did the same thing for the prefabricated construction and health and safety, in which we found 24 publications. Make sense for systematic literature review? Next, please. Based on the first systematic literature review concerning mental health stresses in the construction industry, we then developed this kind of framework. So we classified the stresses into industry-related stresses, management stresses and personal stresses. And based on the literature review, these stresses can increase mental ill health, right? Industry-related stresses like work pressure, long work hours, management is like unclear instructions, poor communication, while personal stresses are age, gender, marital status, language barriers, and so on. So why we identified them from the literature review, from the 51, is it? Anyway, from the left-hand side. Next, please. And remember, we did 2 systematic literature reviews. So this is the second one. We identified the benefits of prefabrication and their impact on health and safety. So we identified the benefits, standardization of processes, right? When we use prefabrication, we can standardize the process better because we do it in a factory instead of on site. So in terms of standardization, it's better. Less congested site because obviously we do the work in a factory instead of on site. So therefore the site will be less congested. Less weather dependence, I think that's clear as well. Again, we do the work in a factory, so therefore we don't depend on the weather conditions and so on. So basically those are the benefits of prefabrication. And we develop this kind of framework, we argue by enjoying the benefits of prefabrication, then we can reduce management stresses, we can reduce industry-related stresses, and we can reduce personal stresses. And as a result, we can improve mental health in the construction industry. And we argue a bit more as well. We say that industry-related stresses are actually the source. So the industry-related stresses will increase management stresses will increase personal stresses, and there's a possibility that management stresses will also increase personal stresses. So this is the conceptual framework which we develop from the systematic literature review. Next, please. And usually when we use systematic literature review, because we depend on past research, we should try to develop something new. We need to advance our understanding. So therefore, besides developing the conceptual framework I presented earlier, we also developed something like this to show the prefabrication to improve mental health or to improve health and safety in construction. I know it's a bit small. I'll give you an example. Okay, prefabrication, less weather dependent. So we can work anytime, basically, regardless of the weather condition. And this can reduce on-site time, right? Because we can reduce the amount of time spent on site. And this can also reduce time pressure, right? Because we can work anytime, regardless of the weather condition. And as a result, this also can improve work-life balance. It means it can improve the health and safety of the workers. Another example may be, okay, prefabrication, then the process is standardized, right? We work in a factory, and we also can implement automation when we use in a factory. Instead of depending on manual labor, we can use robots, for example, to produce all those segments. We can reduce manual labor as a result when we use more automation. And then because of that, we can reduce body pain or musculoskeletal injuries. So we developed this kind of framework to show the benefits of prefabrication on health and safety. Okay? Yeah, next, please. So that's what we did in terms of the systematic literature review. And then the conclusion is the same. We argue, hey, okay, based on this one, I think we need to encourage the use of prefabrication because then people, the construction workers, can enjoy the benefits in terms of health and safety as well. Okay, so that one is the systematic literature review. We use past research, right, to develop new findings. Mixed methods. The research is about developing and validating a positive mental health scale for the global South construction industry. So that is for the developing countries, basically. The construction industry positive mental health inventory. So that's what we call the instrument to assess positive mental health. So why this research? This is the research gap. The concept of positive mental health is yet to be considered in construction management research. So that is the first gap. What does it mean? Because for us, when we talk about mental health, usually we see only the negative aspect, right? We see depression, anxiety, stress, or whatever. So those are the negative aspects, which is important. But according to theory, mental health has two dimensions: the negative aspects, which is mental illness, and the positive aspect, which is mental well being. So, if you want to improve mental health, we need to eliminate or minimize mental illness, and we need to maximize mental well being. Make sense? So, we argue okay, in the past, a lot of research focuses on the negative aspect of mental health, but they don't really see the positive aspect of mental health. So therefore, we want to focus on the positive mental health. And the second one, most measures of positive mental health are validated for use in the global north. So usually for developed country. But remember, we have socio-cultural differences between developing and developed countries. So therefore, we want to build a specific instrument to assess positive mental health in the construction industry for developing countries. Okay. And the research aim, very simple, like what I mentioned earlier, developing a measure of positive mental health for construction personnel with a global South background. Next, please. The literature review. First, we explain the two continuum model of mental health. That is basically what I mentioned earlier. Mental health has two dimensions, positive and negative. And then we explain about the dimensions of positive mental health in past research, which were done not in the construction industry and done in developed countries. And then we review past research on the measures of positive mental health. Next, please. Because this is a mixed method research, in phase 1, we use qualitative methods. We conducted 16 interviews and also 2 focus group discussions, so 8 people each. In the interviews, we used purposive sampling. Basically, we chose stakeholder groups involved with the management of mental health in the construction industry. So the workers themselves, and then the health professionals, the contractor, and also the government officials. As an example of questions, we asked them, what does mental health mean to you? And then how would you describe a mentally healthy person? Because we want to identify the dimensions and items to measure positive mental health. In the focus group, likewise, we use purposive sampling. So we chose people who have experienced in managing mental health in construction. The purpose of the focus group is to validate and convert the individual views obtained from the interviews to group level construct. So basically to confirm the findings from the interviews. Next, please. Based on the qualitative data collection, we identified 4 dimensions of positive mental health: emotional well-being, psychological well-being, social well-being, and spiritual well-being. And we also identified the sub-dimensions and validated statement from the participants. For example, emotional well-being is about life satisfaction. So how satisfied people concerning their life, obviously. And then the psychological well-being, self-acceptance, for example, how a person can accept themselves. So feel good about yourself. It's also about personal growth, their ability to keep growing as a person. Social well-being is basically how a person can connect with other people and develop their networks. And spiritual well-being is about being close to God. And then there you can see other items there. So those are the dimensions of positive mental health, which we identified from the interviews and the focus groups, using thematic analysis as well, like what I explained earlier. Next, please. The second phase, now we use questionnaire survey because the purpose is to validate, right? All the items we identified from the qualitative data collection method. So we did questionnaire survey. There are 48 items in the questionnaire comprising demographic question, general mental well-being, positive mental health, and negative mental health, the 4 sections within the questionnaire. First, we conducted pilot study with 23 people just to make sure the questionnaire can be easily understood by construction workers. And then afterwards, we modified the questionnaire a little bit to improve the clarity. And then we distributed the questionnaire and we collected more than 400 valid responses from construction workers. Next, please. We did confirmatory factor analysis. I think you should be familiar with factor analysis. We just use SPSS. So we have the 4 dimensions, remember, and every dimension has the items as well. The purpose is just to validate, to confirm whether the factor structure of the construct based on the data collected. I can't explain this one in detail, but you need to learn yourself. I just want to say we use confirmatory factor analysis to analyze the data and then to confirm the factor structure of positive mental health. Next, please. And the conclusion, based on the factor analysis result, we can say, yes, it is a valid instrument. Yeah, some of the items were removed eventually, but anyway, at the end, we have a valid instrument and we call the instrument Construction Industry Positive Mental Health Inventory. And the purpose of the instrument is to measure positive mental health in the construction industry in developing countries, Global South. And this is good. Why? Because it promotes SDG number 3 concerning good health and well-being, number 8, decent work and economic growth, and also number 10, reduce inequalities in the construction industry. And of course, we explain the implications of the finding as well and how the instrument can be used. Okay, next, please. More. Another example, observation. So this one I did with Professor Fatma, actually in Indonesia. Hospital Safety Index, assessing the readiness and resiliency of hospitals in Indonesia. So we argue why we need this research. Limited info about the current levels of safety and emergency and disaster management in Indonesian hospitals despite the high frequency of disasters. I think that's pretty much clear, right? Indonesia experiences a lot of disasters, so therefore we need to know the disaster readiness of hospitals, because hospitals obviously have to remain operational, especially in the case of disasters for emergency purposes. The research aim, very simple. We want to evaluate the readiness and resiliency of hospitals in Indonesia. And in this case, we are using Hospital Safety Index. Next, please. The literature review, we briefly explain the disasters in Indonesia so people understand that there are many disasters in the country. We explain the importance of hospital. They need to remain operational. And the bulk of the literature review is about Hospital Safety Index. We explain what it is and why we use it in our research. I think that is straightforward, right? Next. Data collection. I'm not sure whether you are familiar with hospital safety index or not, but uh, based on the guidelines, those are the ways to collect data in using hospital safety index. So we have structured observation because we have the checklist to check different aspects in the hospital. We should conduct interview as well and document analysis, but in this presentation, I just want to focus on the observation part. In the hospital safety index, there are 151 items grouped into 4 modules. The first one, hazards and the role of hospital. The second one, structural safety. The third one, non-structural safety. And the last one, emergency and disaster management. Next, please. This is the example of the checklist within the hospital safety index. So this one is a checklist. This one is a checklist concerning doors, exits, and entrances. So using the checklist, we observe the different features in the hospital, and then we assess them whether it's low, average, or high. I think for high, the score is 1. For average, 0.5, and for low is 0. So for every checklist or for every feature, there is the guidance. What is the meaning of low? What is the meaning of average? And what is the meaning of high? So we simply observe the actual conditions in the hospitals. Makes sense, right? Okay. Next, please. The sampling, well, hospitals non-probabilistic because it is based on the approvals and granted by the authority, so we can't really choose. We can just ask the government, say, okay, can we assess the hospitals wherever that you are willing to give us access? And we decided to choose West Java and Yogyakarta. And we argue that, okay, these 2 provinces known to experience disasters. And 10 hospitals in West Java and 5 hospitals in Yogyakarta participated in the research. Next, please. The results, so just an example, this is a summary based on the 15 hospitals. We can see the weight as well based on the guidance in the hospital safety index. So we just simply follow it. Structural safety is worth 50%, and we found the ratio as well, 0.6. What does it mean? Remember, 1 is high, 0.5 is average, and 0 is low. So the average for structural safety in the 15 hospitals is 0.6. And then non-structural safety, 0.579, and the disaster and emergency management, the score is 0.4. And then we simply multiply the weight with the ratio to get the index. And the overall hospital safety index is 0.54. It means the level is B. And B means intervention measures are needed in the short term. Again, we just simply follow the way to calculate in the hospital safety index guidelines. We also use multiple correspondence analysis to identify, the usefulness of multiple correspondence analysis is to analyze categorical variables. So in this case, the variables, we have the score of disaster management, and then we have the hospital class, because in Indonesia, we have class A, B, and C, right? I hope I'm right. I'm not an expert on this. And then we have the location as well, either in Jogja or in West Java. And then we have the level of non-structural safety as well, and the levels of structural safety. So based on that one, we conducted multiple correspondence analysis to group the variables together. So we can see the patterns. That one, for example, Class C hospitals located in Yogyakarta have poor disaster management, while this one in West Java, we can see many of them are level B hospitals, and it seems like they are doing relatively well. But the problem is the Class C hospitals in Yogyakarta, we need to focus on. Next, please. So the recommendations to improve hospital readiness and resiliency. So this is what we say in the conclusions. First, we need to identify disaster-prone areas because we need to prioritize. We have limited budget, so we need to pick particular areas if you want to assess and improve their hospital readiness. And then we assess the readiness and resilience of hospitals using Hospital Safety Index. We implement intervention measures, and then we should reassess the hospitals to find out whether the measures are effective or not. Hospital staff training framework for knowledge management to ensure that, because sometimes the hospital staff are moving right from one hospital to another, and sometimes when a staff is moving, then the knowledge is lost when a new person comes in. So we need to have a training framework to improve the knowledge management within the hospitals. And then repeat step one by identifying other disaster-prone areas. And by doing these steps repetitively, we can slowly improve the hospital readiness in the country. Next, please. I think this is the last one. Let's say now we use experiment prefabrication, what I mentioned earlier. And remember the meaning of experiment, right? We compare a controlled group with an experimental group. Prefab has 4 levels. The first one is component manufacture, for example, like door furniture, but that one is not really counted as prefabrication. So basically we buy the entire door and then we install it in our building, but that one is not really counted as prefab. The second one, we have non-volumetric prefabrication, a significant part of the building or structure. A good example is wall panels or structural sections, can be like a big truss, right? Or a big beams or whatever. So it's, okay, non-volumetric means 2-dimensional to make it easy. So 2-dimensionals we built in a factory before being transported and installed on site. Volumetric means 3-dimensional, can be the whole bathroom or the whole kitchen, whatever. And modular is even bigger than volumetric, can be the entire house or the entire apartment being built in a factory. So those are the 4 levels of prefabrication. Next, please. In this research, we investigated the effectiveness of bathroom pods to improve health and safety. So we compare the way to build bathroom in a traditional way, which is basically on site directly by the workers. And then we compare the process, the outcomes, with the bathrooms which are built using the volumetric, right? The 3-dimensional method of prefabrication in a factory. So therefore, it's an experiment because the one group is about the traditional method and the second group is about prefabrication. So it's experiment. 52 bathrooms in 26 homes in Melbourne, and the project was done by Mirvac. Mirvac is one of the largest construction companies in Australia. And you can see the bathroom and its internal finishes are completed in a factory. So that is the finished bathroom, how it looks like. So everything is done in a factory before being transported using a truck and then put in place using a mobile crane. While this one is the traditional way of building a bathroom on site directly. And Sync is the prefab company in this example. Next, please. In traditional bathroom construction, the project team comprising project manager, site manager, project engineer, site supervisor, and health and safety coordinator need to be involved if you want to build a bathroom. They need to invite the tradespeople, basically the subcontractors, to build the bathroom. And there are 9 subcontractors just to build bathrooms. Plumber, electrician, plasterer, joiner, glazier, waterproofer, tiler, tile supplier, and fixture suppliers. And the project team members have to coordinate and manage 8 activities with the 9 subcontractors: tendering, purchase order, schedule management, document control, calls and emails, inductions, and health and safety management, just to build bathrooms. Very complicated. And they also need to manage the quality of the work of those 9 subcontractors. Inspection, warranty, certification, and defect management. So it's a complex process. Next, please. And you can see 460 scheduling tasks, 61 hours of phone calls. Can you go back, please? 930 emails, 130 hours of meeting, and 360 hours of inspection. So a lot of work just to build bathrooms in houses. Next, please. Next again. In comparison, when we use prefab, all those things are managed by one company, which is called Sync. So the project team members only need to coordinate with one company concerning those activities, like what I mentioned earlier. And as a result, we can save a lot of time and a lot of money. Well, not really a lot of money, a lot of time. And as a result, that can improve health and safety as well. I'll explain to you a bit later. Next, please. So this is the direct comparison, scheduling, for example, from 460 notifications, the amount can be reduced to only 104. So therefore, 78% reduction. In terms of calls, we can reduce the number, the hours as well. 61 to only 15. Emails from 930 to only 52. Meetings, the hours spent in meetings can be reduced from 130 to only 78. And finally, inspections, 360 to only 104 hours. So we can save a lot of time when we use prefabrication. Next, please. Entries and exits. So we compare, remember, between traditional construction and prefab construction. So we use videos to capture the process of installing prefab components and the process of building bathrooms using traditional methods directly on site. So we use video. So we capture the movement of the workers. In the traditional method, the workers will need to enter bathrooms and exit bathrooms more than 21,000 times. Because they enter the bathroom, they did a little bit of work, and then somehow they went out again, pick another tool, and then entered again, did another thing, went out, keep doing like that. A lot of movement, more than 21,000 times. But in prefab, only 520. So we can reduce the movement of the workers very significantly. It means we can reduce manual handling as well, because all the works are done in a factory, in an automated environment. And when we can remove, or well, not remove, when we can reduce worker movement and when we can reduce manual handling, then we can improve occupational health and safety. That makes sense, right? The number of workers can be reduced significantly as well, from 3,000 workers to only 156. The work hours, almost 3,000 hours just to install or build bathrooms, and we can reduce to only 37 hours. And the days in construction can be reduced from 109 days to only 7 days, which is good for the workers and also for the community, because we can reduce the construction duration. So therefore, the community living around the project is not affected that much when we use prefab, which is good for the health and safety of the community as well. Next, please. The conclusions. So therefore, the health and safety benefits of prefabrication uncovered in the case study. We can reduce workers' exposure to health and safety risks on site because we reduce the number of workers, and then they can reduce the amount of time spent on site. So automatically we can improve their health and safety. We reduce the risk of falling from a height due to fewer and shorter work activities on scaffold, right? Because all the works, well, a lot of the works are done in a factory, so therefore we can reduce the amount of work working at height on site. So then automatically the health and safety can be improved. We reduce workers' movement, which can reduce risks related to slips, trips, and falls, what I mentioned earlier. We can reduce muscular stress due to less manual handling because the work is done in a factory where automation can be implemented better. Improving mental health due to less demand for coordination and people management, which reduces the level of stresses. And finally, improving the health and safety of the community because we can reduce traffic and even less noise and dust, right? Because we do the work in a factory instead of on site. Thank you. I hope that can inspire you or can help you in developing your research or in writing your research, in arguing as well the importance of your research and how data collection and how you can present your research results as well. Any questions? Yes, please. I'm going to use this. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Your presentation is very insightful for me, especially. My name Eka. As a doctoral student in Faculty of Public Health, Prof. Fatma is my promoter.
Okay.
I think I have hidden agenda to you.
Hidden agenda, sure. That's okay.
Maybe after this class, we can talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, Prof. Riza, I have 3 questions. And the first question is about novelty. I think, what do you think about how to make the connection between the problem with the literature so we can find the novelty, especially for the conceptual novelty? And for the second question, about the qualitative study. Okay. Do you have any formula maybe how to extract the literature and link to our research purpose into our questions during interview?
Okay.
Okay, I think it is very challenging for me.
Okay.
How to make some interview structure and link with the literature. And the last, for the proper.
Can I answer first? Otherwise, I forget.
Okay.
Okay. The first one, novelty, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think to me, novelty is about the significance or the importance of the research, right? So as long as you can justify why the research is important, so you need to show the potential benefits of the research. You can see from the perspective of economic benefits, the social benefits, whatever methodological benefits. So as long as you can justify the benefits and the importance of the research, for me, that's good enough. I don't know what is the culture in Indonesia in terms of performing research, but for me personally, if you can show the importance of solving this problem, that's novel enough for me.
Okay, thank you, Prof. But when we submit the article into the Scopus Q1, I think they can reject us because of the novelty.
Yeah.
They need to the conceptual novelty and the contextual novelty, which means it's very hard for me to find the novelty.
No, not really, I think, because all of those research, I think all of them have been published in a Q1 papers, actually. I think the main problem in Indonesia usually is the way they articulate their research. But as you can see, some of the research is very simple. There's one research only collected data using interviews from 8 people. But that one was published in a Q1 paper. No, C1 paper to be more exact. So it's about, delivering the message. Sometimes I understand English can be a problem, and then can't really expand the findings using, to be honest, beautiful language. But as long as we can show the importance of the research, importance of the findings, and how it can be applied in practice, and how it can further advance our understanding of that particular topic, that's good enough to me. Yeah. some people, they try to use fancy methodology, machine learning, Topsys method, or whatever. To me, that's not the main point. If you can use traditional analysis techniques to generate meaningful findings, it doesn't matter. It's just how you discuss the finding in depth. I think that's more important. So the findings and then link them with existing literature and then explaining the implications of the findings. I think that one is more important than using fancy methods. There is nothing wrong, by the way, in using fancy methods as long as you can justify why those methods are the best for these data or for the research. I hope
Thank you, Prof.
answer. Yeah, the second one is about about the qualitative methodology, isn't it?
Yes.
What is the problem again? Sorry.
About the how can extract the literature review into the question during our interview?
Okay. What is the difference between that one and developing a questionnaire? Because in a questionnaire, you also need to link the items with existing research. But why it's more challenging for you to get the questions for qualitative methods?
Because I have read some literature that qualitative research do not have develop a hypothesis.
Yeah, okay. So qualitative research, usually we don't use hypotheses because hypothesis are a specific term for quantitative research. But in qualitative research, we use proposition. Yeah. So just a different way of articulating hypothesis. So we say this one can influence this one, and then this one can reduces this one, but then you confirm them using your qualitative results. They are very similar, just using different terms. Just check hypothesis and then proposition.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last question, Prof, for the proper SLR, systematic literature review article. So how much database that we can use to search the article? Is it okay if only 2 database?
That's okay. Usually for me, I only use one. Only Scopus usually.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
That's okay, but you need to make sure the number of articles at the end is good enough. Some people only use 5, for example. It's kind of okay, but I think, yeah, if you can get at least 12 to 30, I think that's a good number of papers. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof.
And just to explain, I think nowadays journals, they don't like systematic literature review anymore. So I think they try to minimize the number of review papers. Now they prefer to use to publish research with data. Yeah. Unless if the systematic literature review is really significant and then you can produce a new framework, for example, then yeah, that's okay. But nowadays, yeah, I notice, yeah, journals tend to decline systematic literature review. Not all journals, you can still try, but yeah, maybe not Q1, but try Q2 or Q3, for example. I think still okay.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for the insightful presentation. Continuing, my name is Shafiq, and I'm from undergraduate student from Department of Occupational Health and Safety. So I want to ask about continuing about the novelty. Like, are there any difference that required about novelty level between bachelor or master and PhD degrees? Yes, that's my question. Thank you.
Yes, well, at least in Australia, yes, I'm not sure here what is the culture, but yeah, usually in bachelor degree, the research is much simpler because the time is limited as well. I don't know how much time you have to finish your thesis here, but probably it's only 1 semester, right? Yeah, so usually it's way simpler. I don't know how to describe the differences in levels, but the key point is still the same. Your research is still need to be unique. Yeah, you need to justify the gap. The process is still exactly the same, but somehow you package everything so you can complete it within 6 months. Yeah. The key point is that one. You have time constraint, so you need to assess the feasibility of the research, whether you actually can do it within 6 months or not. To me, usually that's my advice for my undergraduate students. You only have this much time. You consider, can you actually collect data based on the time available? If not, then you need to modify your research. Don't be too ambitious.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Yeah.
Online. Oh, yes, please.
Hello, Prof. Can you hear me, Prof?
Can you try again?
Hello, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, thank you for the insightful presentation, Prof. I really get a lot of new information from your presentation, Prof. First, my name is Nabila Shahlan, a master student in occupational health and safety, and currently I research about construction management, and I would like to ask about how can we design a proposal that critically assess not only regulation compliance, but also the real effectiveness of safety management system in practice, particularly in developing countries? Prof, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, can you repeat? So how to do the research within the...
To critically assess not only in regulation compliance, but in the real effectiveness of safety management system in practice, particularly in developing countries.
Okay, so instead of regulatory factor, but then you want to make the research practical, in a sense, how it can improve practice. So to me, it should start from the beginning, because that is determined by it's determined by the research gap and the research problem, right? So if the source of the problem is from practice, then automatically when you do your research, automatically the findings can be used to improve practice. So to me, it's a matter of, from the beginning, how you frame your research and how the research is guided by the research problem, which is a problem in the industry practice. That's my answer. I'm not sure whether I answer your question or not. But I think it should start from the very beginning of the research. Your aim from the beginning should be that you want to solve problems in practice. Then automatically your findings will be relevant for practice.
Okay, Prof, thank you very much. But can I ask one more question?
Yep, sure.
Sure. Thank you. When I see your presentation a few minutes ago, you talk about mental health, psychosocial in construction. I actually really interested in that topic. Actually, I already plan to have a PhD. Maybe we can talk about it later, because actually, if you know my mom, Mrs. Herlina from Medan, she's actually my mom, and I want to ask about.
Okay.
I want to ask if it's can about a construction mental health. You talk about environmental, right, in all the research that you are in the past research. How about personal mental health, from like a pressure from the workload, something like that?
Yeah. So a lot of research has been done in terms of mental health, especially in identifying the sources of psychosocial hazards in the construction industry. So a lot of research on that one. So it depends on you which gap that you want to focus on. To me, I'm not sure for Indonesia that a lot of research in other countries in terms of mental health in construction, but I don't think I see much research on mental health in the Indonesian construction industry. Probably, I could be wrong, but probably there is something that you can explore a bit further. Is there any gap in terms of mental health research in Indonesia, especially in the construction industry? Yeah, we can talk more, I suppose.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Maybe my mom want to add something.
Yeah.
Good morning,
Thank you.
Prof. Riza.
Good morning.
My name Herlina. We used to
Yeah.
publish together about hospital safety index in North Sumatra.
Yes. Good to
Can
see
you
you.
hear
Well,
me?
good to meet you virtually. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, hello. Can you hear me, Prof. Riza?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good to see you, Prof. Riza. Can I want to talk about your past research in Surabaya. Can I talk to you campur-campur?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes, actually saya auditor untuk sistem manajemen keselamatan konstruksi dari Dirjen Bina Konstruksi Kementerian PUPR Indonesia. Dari sejak tahun 2022 itu untuk penerapan dari regulasi, Prof. Regulasinya itu ke Kepmen PUPR tentang SMKK. Nah, memang di regulasi itu untuk semua psikososial itu memang belum masuk, Prof. Seperti yang Prof. Riza bilang. Itu memang belum masuk sampai sekarang. Saya masih berjuang untuk memasukkan itu karena kuesionernya itu juga saya yang buat. Jadi untuk form checklist untuk auditnya itu juga saya yang ikut mengerjakan. Jadi mungkin itu suatu hal yang baru ya di dunia konstruksi karena di PU-nya sendiri untuk SMKK-nya mereka masih fokus dengan penerapan yang namanya PPA ya, personal protective equipment, yaitu untuk mutunya pengendalian mutu sama untuk lingkungan kerjanya juga seperti yang riset Prof. Riza yang lampau itu belum terlalu fokus ke situ, Prof. Riza. Jadi mereka lebih fokus untuk gimana sih ini project selesai dengan mutu sesuai standar dan tepat waktu dengan biaya yang segini. Nah, dari segi biaya kita juga baru mulai, Prof, baru mulai audit di tahun 2025 kemarin gitu, dan itu masih banyak yang belum memang terpenuhi. Jadi itu memang suatu hal yang baru ya, Prof ya. Kalau untuk di Indonesia itu cocok sekali untuk dibuat yang baru. Nah, untuk yang psikososial ini saya riset tahun ini tentang psikososial memang, Prof, tapi belum ke fokus ke konstruksi, masih campur ke semua sektor. Tapi dia dikaitkan masih dengan risiko ergonomi dan lingkungan kerja. Masih ke situ, Prof, larinya. Jadi sepertinya peluang itu masih besar sih, Prof, untuk psikososial karena memang perjuangannya cukup berat sih, Prof, saya untuk memasukkan itu sampai sekarang belum tembus untuk di kementeriannya. Itu mungkin Prof. Riza bisa bantu untuk ada nggak ide yang bisa kita buat selain joint research gitu kan? Mungkin untuk Nabila sih anak saya, untuk Nabila aja, Prof, PhD-nya dia. SMKK-nya itu sudah dia ambil untuk tesisnya, mungkin untuk psychosocial risk-nya ini bisa untuk PhD-nya. Itu gimana kira-kira, Prof? Terima kasih, Prof.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I guess we can talk more. Maybe I just want to comment on what you just said. I understand because everything in construction, well, not only in construction, in businesses, it depends on money.
Yeah.
And of course, when we implement health and safety and then now psychosocial hazards as well, there will be financial implication. Usually it will cost more.
Yeah.
So therefore, we need to justify. This is what I always say. We need to develop the business case for health and safety, including mental health. In Australia, we did research to show the economic importance of health and safety, because when something happened on site in Australia, then the impact on the economic performance of the project is very significant. Definitely, it will increase the cost of the project. So the same. So therefore, because of that, because we can justify the economic performance of health and safety in Australia, so arguably it is easier for us to implement health and safety, including now we include mental health, because we have data showing that mental health claim in Australia increases rapidly. So therefore, we need to address this, improve mental health, so then we can reduce the amount of claim. In Indonesia, I think it's the same as well. If we can justify the economic benefits of safety, health and safety by developing a business case, yeah, this should be the starting point, because everything focuses on money. That's my view, but I know it's not easy, especially in developing countries, because the welfare and protection for the workers are still limited. So a bit hard to show the economic benefits of health and safety.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, just for information, Prof, Indonesian government already published Standard Nasional Indonesia for Psychosocial Risk, based on ISO, I see based on ISO 45003 ya, baru di tahun 2025 kemarin, Prof. 2025. Jadi regulasi standar untuk psychosocial risk itu baru kemarin dan belum kita gunakan. Mungkin tahun ini baru kita mau coba gunakan, Prof. Jadi untuk standar yang Indonesianya baru keluar juga, Prof. Selama ini kita kan masih mengambil dari yang Kopsko, yang seperti NAT itu kan, seperti itu, Prof. Apakah itu mungkin maybe next time we can Zoom to talk about this further.
We can definitely.
Thank
But that's
you.
that's a good point as well, because sometimes we like to develop, not develop, we like to adopt something from other countries, but then they are not really applicable for the local context. So if we can develop something specific for Indonesia, I think that's a very good start. And another issue is the linkage between policies and the actual implementation. We have the same problem as well in Australia. The policies, procedures, regulations, they all look wonderful on paper, but then the implementation is whatever. Yeah. So that's the same problem that we have in Australia as well. How to make all those things actually practical.
Okay.
The enforcement is the problem.
Yes, that's a problem, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Riza. I will contact you by way. Thank you.
Yep.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
May I still? Okay. So, hello, Prof. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Mira, and I'm also currently an undergraduate student. My question is more of a simple one, I guess, since I've seen that you've done a lot of research in various countries and such of like that.
Yep.
This is more specific towards qualitative and quantitative researches. I'd like to ask, have you ever seen a difference in when you're collecting data, right? And like with qualitative studies, you have to ask the subjects or like do interviews and other questionnaires, right? Have you ever had to go through any trouble of asking them to participate in the interviews, or like?
Yes.
If so, how did you overcome that? Because you're currently collecting data, right? So like that's kind of one of my biggest fears with the limited time. We're kind of scared that like they don't want to participate in filling out the questionnaires and such. So that's my question for now.
Yes, that is the biggest problem. Collecting data from people is always the biggest problem. Yeah. I don't know what to say. In Australia, we use money, basically. So interview, for example, for every interview, we give them $50 gift card. Otherwise, it's really hard to convince them to participate. And then for questionnaire, we have like a door prize. So we give, I don't know, $50 gift card to 5 or 10 people. That's unfortunately the only way to encourage people to participate. Well, at least that's what we do in Australia, just to explain it to you. How to do it in Indonesia, no. So I think probably, what we did as well in the past, we collaborated with the managers of a company. So if we get the top people, usually then they're willing to help, because Indonesia has a big power distance. So usually if the top managers agree, the lower ones usually should be helpful as well. I don't know. Again, that's based on my experience. I could be wrong.
Thank you, Prof. So I guess it's not that much of a difference either.
Yeah, it's hard. In Australia, it's even based on my experience, collecting data in Australia is even more difficult than in Indonesia. Because in Indonesia, to me, the people are still willing to help one another, because it's like family oriented, right? This is based on my experience. But in Australia, it's very individualistic. It's really hard to ask them to help you. And then even the workers, their salary is really high, right? So they don't want to spend time in doing this kind of research, rather than, it's better for them just to get money from their work rather than doing research. So it's more difficult to collect data from Australia.
Thank you, Prof, for the insight.
No worries. Yes. Aha. What do you mean by the ethical? You mean to get the ethics approval? We have a process as well. I think the same in UI. So we have different levels, right? The low, we have negligible. No. What is the term? They changed the term. Can't remember now. Minimal, low, and more than low. So those are the 3 levels. The process, 1 month to get an ethics approval. Although for undergraduate, we have a special process. As long as you can guarantee the research is within minimal research category, then all the students can get the classroom approval. Okay. Yes. Yeah, 50. Yeah.
The regulation. I've read literature about the ethical issues.
So you are saying that if we give a voucher or gift card to people, that will create ethical issue. Okay. In Australia, we justify the amount usually. So we explain why it's necessary to use gift card to encourage people to participate. We can say, hey, the minimum salary in Australia is $24 an hour. And then now we want to invite these people to participate in the research, and this research is important. So therefore we need this qualification of people, which is the hourly rate is more than $24 per hour. So therefore 50 is reasonable for them. So we use this kind of way to justify, because we ask for their time, right? 1 hour, for example. So therefore we say, yeah, for 1 hour, this person is worth $50. But again, I don't know what is the ethical consideration here. So you need to understand the Indonesia context as well. If that is not acceptable, then unfortunately, you need to find another way.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Professor Riza. Thank you for your super great presentation today. My name is Bunga, and I'm also undergraduate students, and I'm working on my thesis right now.
All the best.
Yeah. So, what is your opinion, or how do you view research model that incorporate a large number of variables? Like, for example, in your previous research about mental health, there are like 3 independent variables, right? And it has a lot of dimensions also from each
Yep.
variables. So, does adding more variables in a study make it stronger, or it can like weaken the depth of the research, particularly when about the questionnaire, there will be a lot of items asked, and
Yep.
there's a limited time to each person to done the questionnaire, right? So what is your opinion about that?
There is no right or wrong, but it doesn't mean that when you include more variables, then the research is better. No, it doesn't work that way. Because even in my research on mental health, actually it's specific only on one factor, right? In a sense, positive mental health, and then there are 4 dimensions. And then based on the 4 dimensions, there are items to represent each dimension. So it's actually not many variables. I think research should be specific. And you are right. Research should be constrained by the amount of time needed to collect data, because it is the time of the respondent. So for questionnaire, you need to minimize the amount of time spent to fill in the questionnaire. It means you need to minimize the number of items. 15 minutes, that's, to me, that's max. Yes. So you need to conduct pilot study, and then you assess the time needed to complete your questionnaire. I think 15 minutes is a bit too long already, but that's, to me, that's maximum. Yeah.
Okay, like 15 minutes, maybe how many maximum items questionnaire do you think?
Hard to say, but
6,
for me, maximum 50.
50. Okay, great. So because in my current thesis, like I'm also working like 3 variables like that, and
Yep.
so far it consists of almost 50 and 60 items. So
Oh, you want to go 60? Still okay, but don't go overboard. Yeah, that's still okay. Yeah.
also maybe the second questions related also with the mental health stressor in the construction. In the framework, like there are 3 variables. The industry-related stressors, managements, and personal stressors. So I would like to ask about the causal logic of the framework. Why amongst the 3 of that, the arrow is like in one directional pathway? Can it go both ways, or like?
Yeah, I guess because that is based on the systematic literature review, right? So we developed that framework based on past research in a sense. So then we argue that, okay, it should start from the industry, because the industry will determine the ways of people work within the industry. So therefore we say the industry stresses will influence the management stresses, which is how company operates. And then the management stresses will eventually influence personal stressor. And we also argue there should be a direct relationship between the industry stresses and personal stresses as well, because workers are working within the industry, the construction industry. So therefore, industry stresses should influence the personal stresses directly. So that is just how we argue based on past research. But then eventually, after doing the systematic literature review, we also test the relationship, whether it's correct or not. And we did structural equation modeling as well to test the relationship. And actually, we did confirm the direction of the relationship. So industry stresses influence management stresses, and then management stresses influence personal stresses. Yeah, so that's the first step. And then we conducted structural equation modeling afterwards.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answer.
And by the way, because talking about questionnaire, if you have too many items, usually, the respondents cannot concentrate for that long anyway. Then usually your questionnaire, your data will not be that reliable. So it's better to shorten the questionnaire as much as possible. I'll pass this one to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the
Maurice.
great presentation. I would like to ask about the Rita, you mentioned that you paid
Yes.
the respondent.
Yes.
So for me, I can say that honestly, when it comes to payment for the respondent can also relate to the biases.
Correct.
So how do you or what the method you use to ensure the quality and reduce the biases?
Is this in terms of interview or in terms of questionnaire?
Both.
Both. Okay. I think questionnaire should not be an issue. Well, no, it can be an issue as well. But anyway, because it's a door prize, right? There is no guarantee for the respondents to get the gift card anyway at the end. We just want to encourage more people to participate. Even without gift card, biases can still be there when we use questionnaire, right? People can just pick 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, or 3, 3, 3, 3. What can we do? Usually, what I do, we check the standard deviation. So if the standard deviation is 0, then it means the person picked the same number throughout the questionnaire. And then we discard that questionnaire. That's the best that we can do. We can't do anything more than that. And then for interviews, again, what can we do? Sometimes when we conduct the interviews, we can get the sense whether this person is actually genuine or not. If we feel that, okay, this person just say, yes, I want to participate in the interview because I want to get the money, then you simply discard the transcripts. That's the best that we can do, in my opinion. And I guess before the interview, we want to make sure the person has the right qualification as well to participate in the interview, because usually we have the selection criteria, right? So proper people can actually participate in the interview. So based on the selection criteria, then we can choose the right person for the interviews. That's what else can we do? I hope I answered the question. No worries.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for the opportunity. I'm Cindy. Actually, I'm first graduate from bachelor degree from here, and I have interest for experimental study.
Experimental,
Yeah.
wow.
So if our experimental studies has a limited innovation, how we can still make our study is strength, the study it make it like valuable that we want to need based on our purpose of the study. So should we focus on the design or the context or maybe the analysis to make our experiment more strong? Yeah.
Okay. To be honest, experiment is actually my weakest experience, I suppose, because I don't use a lot of experiment in my study. Okay, but to answer your question, I think it's not about the method, but it's more about from the beginning. The problems that you want to solve must be significant in the first place, because then that is the first step in the research process. And that will determine everything within your research. So to me, that is the starting point, as I mentioned earlier. in terms of the, and then, okay, after you know the problem, and then you develop the aim and objectives, you need to know what is the best method to achieve the aim and objectives. So the method will be guided by your aim and objectives to solve the problem. So don't try to use fancy methods, I suppose, and then somehow it doesn't link with your aim and objectives. That's very simple. That, in my opinion, yeah, it should be like that. Yeah.
So it's not about the method, but we just to focus how to solve the problem, right? Okay.
That's my view, because the problem will guide everything else in the research.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
No worries. All good? No more? Okay. What time is it? Oh, wow. 12 already. Okay, if nothing else, so we can just stop here. And thank you again for engaging. You have any questions, you can talk to me directly, I suppose, later. Yes, and all the best with your research. Thank you.